All right. So have you ever like found yourself just kind of staring off into space thinking about like huge ships and how they're actually built?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, the scale of it all, it's just mind-blowing.
It's pretty amazing.
It really is. So today we're doing a deep dive on the career that makes those like maritime behemoths a reality.
Okay.
Marine fitting. You want to know if this is the hands-on job for you, and thankfully we have some intel thanks to RoleCatcher's in-depth guide.
Yeah, what's interesting about this career path in particular is that it really brings together a lot of different skilled trades. It's not just welding, although that's a huge part of it. You're dealing with mechanics, you're dealing with engineering principles. There's even, I think, a little bit of artistry involved when you really think about
Okay,
it.
now hold on.
Yeah,
You're making me want to sign up for welding classes right now.
right.
But no, I'm kidding. But seriously, RoleCatcher talks about like piecing together the steel bones of a cargo ship, and it got me thinking like, what's the learning curve like for a job like this?
Well, and that's where that fabrication aspect really comes into play because you're taking those raw materials, like steel plates, and you are transforming them into the ship's hull components. But it's not just like simple diagrams or anything. We're
Mhm.
talking like really complex blueprints detailing every single pipe and wire and weld holding these massive structures together.
Wow.
So deciphering those and then also being able to visualize that final product,
Yeah.
that's a skill in and of itself.
Wow. I honestly never even considered that, like how much goes into just reading those blueprints. It's
Yeah,
like a whole other language.
it is.
It really is. But let's talk about the work environment itself, because RoleCatcher uses this phrase, grit and grandeur, which I love.
Okay.
What does that actually look like day to day?
Okay, so picture this. You're out on the docks one day, battling the elements as you repair a ship's hull, and then the next day you're inside of this massive state-of-the-art shipyard,
Huh?
using cutting-edge technology to assemble a vessel piece by piece.
So it's not all just fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
Then there's high-tech stuff too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, one thing that RoleCatcher really emphasizes is the rise of automation, even in shipbuilding.
Okay.
This isn't your granddad's shipyard anymore.
Interesting.
Robotics and digital tools are becoming more and more common in this industry. And so that kind of begs the question, does that make the work less physically demanding?
Right.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
It's just a different type of demand, I think, requiring you to operate complex machinery and potentially, troubleshoot those issues as they arise.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about brawn anymore. It's about brains too.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is this isn't like some dying trade about to be replaced by robots.
No, not at all. Quite the opposite, actually.
Yeah, that job security is a huge deal these days, especially in fields that are always changing. But let's be real for a second.
Sure.
Every job has like its pros and cons.
Yeah.
What are we looking at on the con side for marine fitters, according to RoleCatcher?
Well, you already hit on one of the big ones, which is just how physically demanding it can be.
Right.
And that obviously varies depending on, the task at hand and the environment.
Yeah.
But then there's also, long hours are very common in this field, especially when you're trying to, meet deadlines for ship completion or repairs.
Right.
And then, kind of the elephant in the room sometimes is the time away from home.
Yeah, the age-old dilemma, wanderlust versus putting down roots.
Exactly.
I can definitely see how that would be a big factor for people.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not, one size fits all either.
Right.
RoleCatcher points out that, your time at sea really depends on what you specialize in.
Okay.
Building luxury yachts in like a climate-controlled shipyard,
Yeah.
that's a very different experience from, say, repairing oil rigs in the North Sea.
Very different.
Yeah.
So location. It's not just for real estate anymore. It's for
Right.
giant ships too. But, okay, so you've put in the work. You've braved the elements.
Yeah.
What does career progression even look like in this field? Does RoleCatcher give us any clues?
They do. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
So you might start as like an entry-level marine fitter, assisting with, basic tasks.
Yeah.
Very much like that example profile that we see in their guide.
Right.
And then as you gain experience, you could become like a junior fitter, taking on more responsibility, maybe even leading small teams.
Okay.
But then it's like you come to this fork in the road,
Good.
management or specialization.
I think that it's like choosing your character class in a video game. You want to be like the wise leader or the ultimate craftsman.
Exactly. And so, you enjoy that people side of things.
Right.
Leading a team, overseeing projects. Maybe the management track is for you. But if you're all about that deep expertise, you want to be like a welding guru or an engineering whiz,
Yeah.
then specialization, that's your path.
Welding guru. I love like That's a business card right there.
Right.
Put it on there.
Absolutely. But in all seriousness, RoleCatcher's salary data seems to suggest that specialization, particularly as technologies like 3D printing start to really emerge, that might be the ticket to higher earning potential in the long run.
Really. So being a welding guru could actually be more lucrative than, like, managing a whole team.
It seems that way, right?
Huh. I have to admit, that's not what I expected.
Right. It kind of challenges our preconceived notions about what a quote-unquote successful career path really looks like.
Yeah,
But of course, salary is only one piece of the puzzle here.
sure.
You also have to factor in job satisfaction, work-life balance, personal fulfillment, all that good stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Money isn't everything.
Right.
But it's definitely nice to know, like, what the possibilities are.
For sure.
Speaking of possibilities, RoleCatcher had this whole section on adjacent careers. So things that you could do with your marine fitting skills outside of shipbuilding.
Okay.
And some of them were pretty surprising, like becoming a motor vehicle assembler.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example because it really highlights those transferable skills that you're developing.
Yeah.
Problem solving, working with your hands, understanding those complex systems.
Right.
Those are valuable in so many different fields. It's not just shipbuilding.
So even if someone decided, like, okay, shipbuilding isn't for me, they wouldn't be starting from scratch in a new career.
Right.
They'd have all this experience to build upon.
Exactly. And that kind of brings us back to those technological advancements we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
Because RoleCatcher really emphasizes how 3D printing in particular is poised to completely revolutionize the shipbuilding industry.
3D printing ships. That sounds like something straight out of, like, Star Trek or something.
It does, doesn't it? And we're not at the point yet where, we're just printing out aircraft carriers in one go.
Right.
But it's getting there.
Okay.
The technology is moving that quickly. But just imagine this. Instead of welding those huge steel plates together, you are using a 3D printer to create, custom ship components, layer by layer, right there in the shipyard.
So no more, like, waiting for parts to be shipped from across the world.
Yeah. That's pretty incredible.
Sign me up. But for someone who's thinking, like, okay, this is a cool career, how does that impact me?
Yeah. How does this impact someone who's thinking about a career as a marine fitter?
Right.
And I think that is the million-dollar question, because while those traditional skills are still important, you're welding your fabrication, knowing how to read a blueprint.
Yeah.
The marine fitter of the future is going to have to be comfortable with these digital tools and technologies.
So it's not enough to just be good with your hands anymore. You got to be kind of a tech person, too.
Exactly. You've got to be thinking about, how do I take something from the computer screen and bring it into the real world?
Right.
How do I troubleshoot these automated systems? How do I adapt to this rapidly changing landscape?
Yeah.
Those are the things that are going to set people apart.
It's like, instead of being afraid of the robots taking over, you're like, okay, let's work with robots and, like, make them even better.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great point, because that kind of leads us into that final thought for today. As you're considering this career path,
Okay.
and as you're, checking out those resources on RoleCatcher,
Yeah.
ask yourself this: what unique skills and passions can you bring to the table to help shape the future of this industry?
I like that it's not just about learning the trade. It's about figuring out where you fit into this whole world.
Absolutely. And, who knows, maybe someday we'll be having a deep dive on, whatever your name is, 3D ship printing specialist.
I love it.
The possibilities are there.
Okay, now you're making me want to enroll in a welding course and a computer science boot camp. But seriously, this has been incredibly eye-opening.
Yeah.
We went way beyond the typical, like, what does a marine fitter even do?
Yeah, we really dug deep today. I
Yeah.
think we looked at not just, the day-to-day realities of the job, but what does the future hold? What's the impact of technology? What other things could you do with these skills?
And for anyone listening who's like, you know what, I'm going to chart my own course now, RoleCatcher, their guides are insanely detailed.
They are really good.
And they're so passionate about helping people find careers that are fulfilling.
They really are. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And they are giving you the tools to navigate this crazy world that we call work. So
Couldn't have said it better myself.